And we want to kind of share stuff with you. I know you've kind of seen and got messages sent to you, or you wouldn't know to be here. So I have several school board members here, several staff members. We even have a translator in translation needed at all. We good there? Okay. All right. Well, let's get to it. Does everybody have a handout? If you don't have a handout, raise your hand. We'll get you one. So I don't know exactly where everybody starts in this particular journey. I've been here just in March, April. I will have been here 2 years. I've been here 18 or 19 months. When I came, I think you know, bonds have been passed. We're going to build schools. We're looking at demography reports of lots of growth. Little Elm, particularly Little Elm ISD, has grown a lot in the last 10, 15 years. So a lot of the planning and preparation has been going on for that. And I come in about 16, 17 months ago and kind of inherit what we need to do there. I think for the most part, everybody thinks or thought that you may or may not know, Oak Point has been a very large elementary in our school, over 1,000 kids. And in one of our last bonds, we approved to build 2 different elementaries, but we're going to build one and then the other. And so one is almost done, should be done this summer. But that's mostly was to pull some of the numbers off of Oak Point. I think most people thought all we were really going to do was kind of cut Oak Point in half and split that up. I don't know if you've watched the news lately. In the last couple of years, for a lot of schools, we're all kind of dealing with the same thing, basically declining in enrollment. Okay. Again, within the last 2 years, we've had 150 kids less throughout our district each year for a total of 30 right now. So, decreasing enrollment, we're kind of learning a lot of new problems that are around that weren't around in the past. A couple of those being right now home prices being what they are. Okay, that's one of the reasons we think things are very different. I don't know how familiar you are with different things, like if you leave from here and go to Lake Dallas right now, you'll notice, particularly in Lakewood Village, with those David Weekley homes right before you cross the bridge. I've been doing this 29 years. A neighborhood like that, when you see a neighborhood like that, you immediately think lots of homes, lots of new families, lots of kids. Well, how much do you guess the lowest price home in that neighborhood is going to be? Any guesses? Huh? Well, you're not guessing, you actually know. Most people guess 400 and 500, but the lowest home price there is going to be $720. Typically, or we're learning at this point, 720s and above aren't necessarily places where young families go and have 2 or 3 kids that go to the school. Okay, so we're prepping for growth. We've had to change our demography reports a little bit lately. We're supposed to be about a 10,000 kid school right now, and we're barely at 8,000. So a lot of the fast growth has just kind of come to a halt and is actually going a little bit backwards. Another factor is simply, I don't know if we have any research that proves this, but for the last 20 or 30 years, neighborhoods would have families live in homes, raise their kids, and then move and downsize and sell the house to the next person. More people are hanging on to their house now than ever before. One of our biggest examples is Chavez Elementary. As I was coming in, we see that the enrollment at Chavez is declining quite a bit. What it boils down to is that if you have a zone at any one school, and all the houses that are there are just filled with people that don't have kids, pretty soon you have no kids zoned to a school, and that's a problem. And it just boils down to the houses aren't filled with people that have kids now. They were filled with people that had kids, and of course those kids have gone through the system. So all those things are going on and happening, and it was very obvious a couple of years ago, not only did we need to do what we need to do for Oak Point and the opening of this new school, but we need to address some of these issues of declining enrollment, basically unequal schools, and the things that we would do about that. So that part of the project's kind of been undone, okay? But it makes sense to do it all at once, is what this boils down to. So you've got a piece of paper there, and I just kind of teach you a few things so we can talk the same terminology for a little bit. That green column, that's where we are current, okay? And if you've got 6 schools with that many kids in each one, for a total of 3,555, we should have 6 schools that average right at 600 kids, okay? But you see real quickly how off from the average we are with each one of those, okay? That's never really been a problem before, but it is a problem now, okay? And you know, Oak Point having 999, that very much plays a part in if we set up basically neighborhood schools and say, well, we don't really care. However many kids move in here, that's who goes here. And however many move in over here, we really can't afford anymore to have a 700 kid school and a 400 kid school. And you're going to see why in just a second. But you can clearly see in that green kind of how unproportional we really are, okay? Now, where we're at and the configuration I'm going to show you tonight in the blue, I think you can start to see is a little more balanced, a little more closer to the average, except for Oak Point and except for Lakewood Village, and I'm going to explain those in just a second. I'm going to come back to capacity, and I'm going to come back to that last one in a second. I got to wiggle my computer a little bit or I'll lose my web page. So on this paper, again, if you go to the top of the paper and you notice that top box represents any given school that has 4 teachers per grade and 18 kids in a classroom. Okay, and you notice that totals 432. I'm going to tell you that that's about as small as we would ever want to be. And that small a school of 432 is really borderline way too small. Starts to get real inefficient. You don't want 9 schools in your district with 300 people in it. That's a real inefficient thing when it comes to counselors, administrators, food service. 400, something that looks like this, 4 teachers per grade. You really don't want your classes dropping down to 16 and 15, but that happens sometimes. Now, and you know that by law we can't really have more than 22 kids in class without getting a waiver. Okay, so that next box represents when kids move in and you kind of fill up all those classes, you could go to 528. So my point is, and you're going to hear me talk in terms of 4s and 6s. A school that has 4 teachers per is a school that is basically between 430 and 530. Okay? When you have a school that's that, and you start getting bigger and bigger, the next you start adding that 5th teacher per grade, and then that 6th teacher per grade. And pretty soon, when you have 6 teachers per grade, you see those next 2 boxes. And if you have 18 kids in all the classes, you'd have about 648. If you have 22 kids in all the classes, you'd have 792. Okay? Now, again, I came in here 16 months ago, kind of looking at things through this lens. This is the lens I've known for a long time. Well, it just so happens our schools, that yellow column at the bottom, they're all built for a capacity of 777. Okay? Except for Prestwick's a little smaller than that, and Oak Point shows to be bigger. Well, how Oak Point is actually built as a 777, but why are we having more kids in there right now? What allows us to do that? The portables. Okay, when we put portables in, we can go bigger, but the actual building, and I say all that to say, 777 is as big as I really want to be. Okay? And it's nice that our schools were built for that. That's just kind of a lucky thing on my part, that what I like is what we have in our buildings, the 777. So these 4s and 6s, schools of 4 teachers per grade, schools of 6 teachers per grade, I want to be able to talk that language with you, okay? Well, like I said early on, so where this all kind of hit us in the face a couple years ago, Chavez at a 454 and even Prestwick at a 417. They're starting to get a little too small. Okay, and that's what prompted, and even if you forget Oak Point for a minute, Hackberry in the 600s and Brent getting close to 600. Again, you're going to see why in a minute. You don't want 600 and 700 and 400 down here getting smaller. And right now, Chavez is only getting smaller, and it has to do with just nobody's really moving in and out of those homes. Okay, so we would be pretty close in a couple of years to considering closing Chavez. And think about what I'm saying. If they got down to 350, that's what we'd have to talk about. But it wouldn't make sense to sit there and look at that 350 and close it while we had a couple of 600s over here. If those 600s could flow into there, you wouldn't need to close it. Does that make sense? It's about, kind of equaling out the numbers. A couple other things. This is a chart we kind of created that just tells us this. The red boxes kind of tell me how close or far away we are from the 4s and 6s. Okay? So this far right red box, that's Prestwick. So they have 4 in kindergarten, 5 in first grade, 4, 4, 3, 3. With a 3 and a 5, that averages itself out, but with ultimately a 3, that's a little bit small. Okay? If Prestwick is a little bit small, what might we do to get more kids in there? Any thoughts? Well, I think I heard you say, and you're going to see real clearly in a minute on the map, Prestwick is pretty much that whole peninsula right now. We could go and grab from the other peninsula just off the edge and pull some around maybe and pull some. That's an idea. That's an idea we had. Okay? So that's one way to do it. The next column over, 4, 4, 4, okay, 1 and 2, 5, 5, 5. If the trend continues for that to stay at 4s over the next 3 years, in 3 years, what will that school be? A complete 4, right? If those 4s continue to go instead of the 5s. It's as if there's these trends going on. On the far left, that's Brent. With 1 red bar per grade, we're 1 teacher away, either up or down, from being as big as we can be or being as small as we can be. Okay? And then the second column over is Hackberry. 3 red bars. They're 3 teachers away from being as full as they can be. Okay? And that'll all make a little more sense in just a second. One other point to make, and then I'm going to jump into the maps and start telling you stuff. One decision that had to be made before we could really talk about anything when it comes to rezoning is what to do with dual language. Okay? Now, how many of you are touched by dual language in any way? One there, a couple here. Is that it? So, if your child's not in dual language, you may not care what I'm about to say, but for those of you that are in dual language, you may or may not know we have 2 schools. When I'm looking at the map, I just kind of talk about it on the east side and the west side, okay? So on the east side, we have 2 schools that have 2 dual language classes per grade. All right? So per grade, we end up having 4, but it's in 2 schools on the east side. On the west side, in Oak Point, we have 4 all in 1 school, okay? There's some natural trends in dual language. And again, if you're not in dual language, you may not care or know this. But when a kindergarten groups and needs 4 classes worth of dual language, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, a lot of times by 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the kids move away and different things. 4 needed teachers goes down to 3, and sometimes even 2, depending on how much. So there's a natural attrition. Well, when you're over here with 2 and 2, and that natural attrition happens, it's hard to cut 2 down to 1. And so we've had some issues in our dual language program just with that right there. We had a situation this year where we really wanted to take one of our doubles down to 1, and it didn't go over well. It's not going to go over well to do that. So we're having to make some concessions right now, but we can't do that forever, okay? So we went into this project of needing to take students out of Oak Point with a frame of mind that we've got to do something about dual language. We really almost hoped or thought that on the east side of town where there's 2 schools with 2 each, it might have been nice to put them all in one and have the same kind of 4 situation that we have on the other side of town. But quickly we realized that just wasn't going to work very well. Well, when we got deeper into this project and saw some of the pitfalls of what was going on, we saw this 4 over here, and it was almost like, man, if we would split that and make it look like the other side, it might be helpful. But it's not best for us back to the number situation that can happen. So we were really in a quandary with dual language. We have some issues where students qualify for dual language if they're emergent bilingual. And we have enough to justify 4 classes every time. But we open the door for non-emergent bilingual to come join them and learn to be bilingual. Well, we really need as many kids here as we have here. And right now we have about half. What do we do about that? That's a problem we have. We've kind of determined that our best solution might be a little better advertising. So we're going to work on that. We're going to try to solve that problem. But I'm still talking about dual language, and I'm going to say this. Ultimately, in the end, we realized we're at a place where we need 7 teachers and not 8. And the 7 all of a sudden solved our problem. Because we can keep 4 on this side and the 2 and 2, but instead of needing 4 on the Oak Point side, we can right now get away with 3. And that turned out to be the solution we need. Okay? So we've solved the problem in dual language for now. We intend to advertise better and try to make the 4 and 4, or the 4 and 3 go to 4 and 4, which we have room for that. But we've got some work to do there, but we've got that kind of solved. So once that's solved, we can start our other project. Okay? And again, that's splitting this up and moving this around. So, Oak Point. I need to tell you this. $9.99. In any given grade at Oak Point, most people thought, oh, you're building a new school. You're just going to take Oak Point, who has 1,000 kids in it, and put 500 in the new school and leave 500 there and split that in half and make that nice, right? The problem is, 4 dual language classes per grade at Oak Point. How many do I want total there? 6. So we have to have this for right now. And all we can do is this. And this meant 2 classes for kids that weren't in dual language but live in that zone. Only 2 were available. 6 per grade. The best we were going to be able to do right now in cutting Oak Point quota in half is immediately take kids out and immediately make them full at the 6s. Does that make sense? The best we're going to be able to do, or we thought, is immediately empty Oak Point just enough to make them full at 777 basically. Okay? And that was okay. We were going to live with it. Well, that's the line you see on the far right at the bottom. If we have one school be 720, which is 6s, look at the average of the rest. What do the rest have to be? 4 7s. Okay? If we end up with 2 schools that are 6s, we're going to eliminate the need for a school. You see that? So going into the project, we knew we're going to have one school be as big as we can possibly be immediately. And go back and think about Hackberry being almost full. Think about Brent being almost full. If we have 3 schools go to 6, we do eliminate the need for a school. Which one is it? Which one do you want to close? Chavez? Brent? That's so equal numbers, and I would much rather have a school of 450, 500 than 600. It's just a better cottage, it's a better environment, the whole thing. So there's nothing wrong with us balancing this better, but we really can't have 6 and 700s and 3 and 400s. Okay? And so we thought we were headed for this last line. Okay? Fortunately, we don't need that 4th teacher right now in dual language in Oak Point, so we get to be 3 and 3. And that was a saving grace. You see those projected numbers at Oak Point say 649 instead of 720. That 649 is a little bit of a blessing for us right now. We don't have to start that quite as big as we thought. So that's a little bit of a blessing to find that out about dual language. All right, this is our current setup, and you may not be completely familiar with it, but let's talk about it in a second. The bottom purple, that's currently Prestwick, okay? Like I said, it's that whole peninsula. Remember, I said, well, let's maybe go grab some from the peninsula over. Guess what? There's no kids over there. All these dots mean kids. I mean, you'd have to go from way up here to get some of those kids zoned into Prestwick. Well, we've really quickly decided that's not feasible. Again, not until we had this software, had this ability, we went in with all of these thoughts of what we needed to do. Pulling some off of the edge of that would make some sense, but there are no kids on the edge of that. So we've had to say Prestwick is Prestwick. Yes, it's a tiny bit smaller than we want it to be, but it's not completely too small. The next one up, Hackberry. Hackberry is this whole peninsula, okay? But like we said, Hackberry was almost too full. So what would make a little sense at Hackberry? Pull some kids off the edge. If Hackberry is a little too full, then we can't have 2 6s. It would make sense to pull some off the edge. Now that yellow and orange and even pink, David, when you go down just a little, there you go. Keep going. So orange is Brent, the yellow is Chavez, and the pink is Lakeview. Okay? It is currently an interesting mess. Okay? And I say that to say, we're going to show you a different interesting mess in a minute. But, for example, where that orange is almost pressed up to Chavez, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's people that say, we live right here by Chavez, why do we got to go to Brent? Lakeview's pink comes all the way down into the middle of what should be Chavez and Brent. Okay? So there was strange things somebody had to do when they set this up, just like we're having to do a few strange things now. But that's kind of the jumbled place that's essentially causing us the most problems right now. So with that said, here is the proposed new. So that yellow is all Lakewood Village. Okay? Now look for a second. You can see that yellow represents 348 kids supposed to be in Lakewood Village. Now, I want to make it clear, I think we tried to make it clear. If you live right here in this yellow zone, but you're in the dual language program, you're still going to go to Oak Point and go to the dual language program. Okay? So this can be a little deceiving. But outside of that, you can say this however you want to. I don't know how to be most. We built a new school, Lakewood Village. We got to put kids in it, don't we? Look how far our yellow had to reach to get 350 kids in it. I'd really rather have 400. You tell me right now, how do I get 400 kids in that yellow? I either get even closer, get right up next to Oak Point to do it, or I come further. This comes all the way up close to Chavez. I come further up the street. But it's grabbing more yellow would be the way to get more people in this new school. Now, that's the place we have the most housing growth right now. There's a lot of houses being built around Lakewood Village. There's the whole neighborhood being built around. We have to assume some kids are going to come from that. But it's just not going to be quite like it's been in the past, we don't think. 350, I hope with the housing finishing up, I hope we get to 420 pretty quick. Okay? That I don't like to start out with a 350, but when you're starting school, sometimes that's what you have to do. We hope for some growth there. Okay? I was on the phone with somebody the other day. There's a pretty interesting housing development going in right here behind Oak Point. Well, guess what? That'll mean that's 5 years away, but it'll mean more kids for Oak Point. And these are truly affordable houses. I say that to say, I do think a time in the future we will pull this corner off right here to Lakewood Village. At least we can if we have to and need to. But right now we're trying to salvage as much as we can how close they are to Oak Point. Okay? So, situation number one, Lakewood Village, that yellow kind of grabbing. It'd be hard to grab more right now. Get over here, like I told you, Presswood's Presswood. You can see where we pulled off of Hackberry, right? You see where we took from that blue and pulled that orange around? That's where Hackberry got to go from 602 to 555. So we're a little further away from that 777. Yes, this in here is pretty interesting. As it's been pointed out, there's some streets that run through there. We've got kids on the same street zoned for orange, which is Brent, middle of the street pink, which is Lakeview, other side of the street yellow, which is Chavez. That may not feel like it makes a lot of sense, but honestly, it can. If those are friends that ride bikes together, yeah, that's a struggle. Okay? But if you have a house in that yellow, even though it's on the same street as a house over here in this orange, a lot of times it's very convenient to get to go to the closest school. So it's a mixed bag of what that is. I realize in that area, it's a little bit crazy. Quite frankly, I'd like to cut that red off and make it not Lakewood Village, make it all Lakeview, make it all Brent. But again, if you change the numbers that much, you're back to 500s and 400s, or 550s, and like it's just the thing that makes the numbers work. I can't say again, the blue line at the bottom, Oak Point is what it is, Lakewood Village is what it is, Prestwick is what it is. Those others, being within 50 of the average, that's as good as it gets, really, and that's pretty darn good. We need those balanced numbers so that one doesn't show up as, well, we need to close it. That's kind of what it boils down to. Okay? So I think I've touched base on every piece of this. we've looked and talked about everything here. Couple of things I'll hit you with addressing. You know, the timing. This was not a fun project. I really thought we'd be pushing it to get this done by spring break. There was a lot of things that had to be known and done, and the fact that we got done in this time, and my thought was we wanted to share with you as fast as we could. Just start the dialogue, start the information. Yes, December's a busy time, I know, but we could still be talking after January. We had the information, we wanted you to have it, even if we can't necessarily answer all the questions. We're trying to answer them as fast as we can. Each presentation, we learned a little something about a tweak here or there, so the presentations are valuable to us. We are going to, let's just say, okay, you've been going here, now you're supposed to go here. We will have a process for you to ask to stay back. It'll be numbers driven, and here's the deal. If 100 kids are leaving, we have no way of knowing. A bunch of them will say, oh good, I get to go to the new school. Some of them will say, good, I'm closer to that building already. Some will say, I don't want to leave, I want to be where I'm at. I've been here, I'm a fourth grader. Now, we get that, okay? We're going to have to say who wants to try to stay, get that collected. We'll look back. I talk in terms of 22, 44, 66, and 88. If I see that there's 76 third graders in a class in a given grade at a school, how many teachers is that? 76 is above 66, so it's 4 teachers. But we can go up to 88. So if I'm at 76 and 6 people say they want to stay in that grade, we can do that. But if I'm at 76 trying to get to 88, which is 14, and 20 people say they want to stay, we'll do a lot of them and let 14 stay and the other 6 go on waiting list. So we're just going to have a time and place where we ask you to declare what you want to do. A lot of people are ready to go to the new place. Lots aren't. But declare what you want to do. We'll look back at the numbers and we'll decide. Some places are already full. They're already sitting at 88. We'll have to say, sorry, we really can't take any more right here. It'll all be numbers driven, but we do have a mechanism for you to turn around and ask to stay. So timing, being able to stay. What else? What questions do you have? Yes?
Are you still planning to use portables at Oakland Elementary? Are they going to be vacant?
Say it again?
Are you still planning to use the portables at Oak Point Elementary, or will
We-
they be vacant?
We are not planning to use them. We've got the numbers where we don't need them. Now, the real question is, what are we going to do with them? Do we sell them and move them away and get rid of the ugly eyesore forever? Or do we stop and wait and see what this neighborhood is going to do and just have them sit there waiting? We're not real sure yet, but we won't be using them with these numbers.
Hey, Mike. Is anybody here in Paloma Creek? We haven't really talked about that.
I have a friend, so I'm listening for her.
Okay,
If you have
Paloma Creek
anything
now
to
goes
say.
to Oak Point.
Yeah,
If you look on the map, that's not where they're gonna go.
okay.
They're
No,
gonna
they're
be-
going to Lakeview.
They're gonna become the Lakeview.
Okay.
Be a plus or minus depending on where, if you're taking your child and getting 381 one way or the other.
Where he's talking about, these students here have been going to Oak Point, okay? They have to come all the way out to 380, come all the way down and all the way back. It's not gonna be much better. They gotta go to 380, come out and come around. It's a 1 mile difference. So, say it again?
Yeah.
Okay, you said that we'll have an opportunity to ask to stay at the school?
Yes.
Okay, because my boys will be in 5th grade and I just don't see them going to a different school for their last year elementary. And they are in walking distance from the house,
Yeah. Which school?
Lakeview.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. We tried certain thoughts like, well, let's let all 4th and 5th finish. But again, teacher distribution, it just doesn't work like that. The first situation we looked at, and it was back at Oak Point in Lakewood Village. We were trying to say, well, you know, because as soon as we say all 4th and 5th can stay, there'll be a few raise their hand and say, oh, no, I want to go to the new school. We can't have a teacher here waiting on 10 and a teacher here waiting on 10 when we could have one and force 20 to be in one place, is what it boils down to. Like any form of trying to grandfather from the start was going to saturate our teachers so much we can't do it. So I hear you. We knew that would be said. Hey, they're going to be fifth graders and all that. We're going to try to possibly build some priorities for things like that. Clearly, there's some things with brothers and sisters. We're a long way off from that. Really, I say a long way. We still want to have all this finished by spring break. So when we get back, we've got January, February, and a little bit of March to really get all this ironed out and figured out. But we're still working towards it.
Will there be a list, or do you know how that will work?
What do you mean a list?
To be able to ask to stay at the school?
We will put out some way for you to declare,
Okay.
I would like to stay. We'll have to leave that open for a period of time, and we'll have, and because if we need to do a lotto, we'll do a lotto on this date.
Okay.
If we don't need a lotto and everybody gets to, we'll just let you know, everybody's gonna get to do it.
Okay.
But we gotta close it at some date to just let everybody declare what they wanna do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, behind you.
Oh, no, that was the question. I was like, how will we know when this window opens, or like what school you're assigned to? To say, oh yeah, I need the lottery.
Sometime in January, we will say, let us know. And I mean, somewhere between, we already have a transfer process, but it's, in my opinion, it's a little bit big. I'd like for this one maybe to be a little smaller. We gotta figure out if we could just let you declare that somehow, or if we need to run it through the regular process. But we're gonna declare in January, everybody that, and this has been asked, if we're zoned for Lake, if we're zoned for Brent, can we ask to go to the new school? Sure, numbers based. So we'll announce somehow, let us know. We'll leave a week or 2 weeks to let everybody tell us, but we'll cut it off and decide if we need a lottery. Some of it we'll be able to say almost immediately is a no. If you say, I'd like my third grader to stay, and I know our third grade's already set full at 88, I can tell you no immediately, really.
Will the communication be through email or through, how would the communication be?
Probably email, like we can email you directly is a lot of what we're trying to do. Once we get to this point where we're talking to people specifically, we'll start sending more direct emails. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, my daughter's in Zellers right now, and it was my understanding that that would feed into breaks when it was helpful. Does this mean now that I can expect her to go into Chavez, or is her program already set up for her in expectation of that?
Do you see where you clearly live, what zone?
I think you said Orange was Brent, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're right on the edge of Brent right now.
Okay, and I'm gonna say this to you and anybody here. If you wanna hang around after, I can look some stuff up specifically, okay? Streets, look at lines, so let's look at that. If you say you're on the line, let's check that out. But nothing is already done. Wherever you live, that's where your pre-care will go, whatever zone you're in, okay? It sounds like it's either Chavez or Brent.
Speaking of Zeller, because we were at Zeller last year when it opened, have you guys thought about and looked at how special populations is gonna be spread out throughout this yet?
Yes, but I can't tell you exactly yet. When you say spread out, and our director was gonna be here tonight for that very thing, she woke up sick. So, I'll give you one example I am aware
Okay,
of. We have a program at one school, 3 classes.
okay.
We're probably gonna have 1 class at 3 different schools.
Which program is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly, if I tried to tell you, I'd make it up. I mean,
She wants to try to have a self-contained class at home. Okay, and so by lessening the population, and we're currently at home campus in Missouri.
you know, we've had this discussion, and this is kind of real general. And in my previous district, we did the same thing. When you're kind of small, let's just say an autism class or program, if you're going to have an autism class, you usually only have it one place. You don't try to have an autism class at all 6 elementaries, and you understand why, right? But we've grown, and not necessarily in autism, but in all the other programs. We've got to move away from the centralized things and have more options, more places. And a lot of our special ed programs, we're headed that direction where we have, again, we don't want 3 things here when we can have 1, 1, 1. But I can't tell you specifically what those, do what? Say it again?
I was just saying, that's really fine, I was just curious if that was numbers that they looked at, or the way that they would like judge or.
Yes. Christy's looking at them all the time. Anything else?
I have a question. I have some teenagers.
You say you have 2
I
teenagers.
know it has nothing to do with elementary, but it definitely concerns me as well regarding being over, with students here. Is there any chance of doing it another second high school or any chance of that?
As far as I know, no plan of setting high school.
Making this one bigger.
We'll make this one big.
Well, are they making it bigger? Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard that it was just like for sports and stuff.
Well, what started right now is just sports over there.
No, there's a wing out here that's all classroom being built right now.
Okay.
And again, it is, we need to be concerned, we are decreasing in enrollment. And for everything Louisville, Plano, and Richardson are saying right now, and I didn't know until I watched the news last night, Louisville's been dealing with this for 10 years. So this is their board meeting last night closed, was it 5 schools? And if that's been going on for 10 years talk, we may be on the front end of ours. I don't know. We've got to sit back and look and just see, is that our trend? Why is that a trend for so many? Louisville uses the term over and over. What do they say? Basically, we maxed out. They know the year we maxed out. Right now, we maxed out 2 years ago. I think we were 8,300 and something. Last year, we were 8,250, and we're barely 8,200 now. 2 years ago might have been the biggest we're ever going to be. But, man, there's a lot of housing. I don't know if it's true. We don't know. And we used to be able to say, well, in that neighborhood where there's 100 houses, there used to be a formula, that's 1.5 kid per house. But because of prices, that just doesn't work anymore. And so it's such a loss for how to predict those things. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Chavez has such low enrollment, why are you moving Chavez students to the new school?
Well, it became apparent that this was going to be a big shuffle around. No matter how you did it, it was going to have to be a shuffle around. To get some kids into the new school, that's the closest place was to Chavez, so we knew Chavez would need to grab some on the other side.
So Frisco has open enrollment.
Yes.
For elementary schools, and those are actually closer than the school that you're trying to.
Okay.
How does that make sense?
In some cases it does, you're right. But even now, we've got some kids pressed up against the Chavez school that we send to Brent. So I mean, we've been doing that type of thing for a while.
5.5 miles versus 1, it just doesn't make sense.
I hear what you're saying, but we've got a lot on the edges of where they are, and they can come to the closer. But again, let's talk about the possibility of you staying put.
Hey, Mike, could you review her question so you hear what she's saying?
I'm going to apply to go. Repeat her question.
Okay. I think you sent this email, didn't you? Okay. So the email, it says, I'm currently a mile from Chavez, and now you're talking about going 5 miles to the new school. She's talking about that. Being on the edge of the new zone. She's closer to a Frisco school right now, so it would make more sense for her to ask to go to Frisco than me to go to the new school we're trying to send her. I get it. I totally get it. I think we can probably work around it if you'll let us try.
Speaking of what she mentioned about Frisco having open enrollment, I don't know if they've already filled those spots or not. Have you taken, these numbers taken into consideration, anybody moving?
They announced that after we finish this, and yes, that'll probably touch us. But you
What
know,
was her statement?
So she's asking essentially, what will the Frisco open enrollment do to us?
It starts December 16th.
What do you mean starts? Sign up for it? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, it'll affect us, there's no doubt. It'll affect everything I just said numbers wise. Let me ask you this, are we open enrollment or not? You're the first to answer it, right? Most people say no. But we're open enrollment, we need to do a better job advertising. And so, say it again? How do you propose to do that? Okay, yeah, no. And that kind of boils down to even those that are going to charter school and what have you. If we advertise better some of the great things we're doing, we think we can pull some kids back. Yeah. That is another factor, choice in this area, even if it's homeschool. That's another reason we seem to be declining enrollment. There's a lot of choice. There's a lot of choice in this area.
Are vouchers going to pass, you think?
I believe they are. But they may not.
Are there charters and private schools in our district? I'm not educated on that.
Well, so in a totally different meeting, if you want to come to my office, I'll educate you.
Yes, sir.
But, well, I'm going to pull up one thing.
Hey, while you have the map up, we've had input from people who live in the apartments that are close to Chavez, but they're so close they can't have bus service. Now that they're in the yellow, going to Lakewood Village, they now have the opportunity to put their children on a bus.
Buses don't help with doctor's appointments, so many kids get
And
sick,
after-school
and
care.
after school, and.
I'm just saying, we've had a lot of input from the folks who live in those apartments that have to go to Chavez now, for the same reasons that you're saying is the timing to get in line to get into the school.
I know you really can't see that very well. So I track, this is all the kids that live in our zone and go somewhere else. And this is when I was preparing for the voucher battle. The voucher battle says parents want choice. Well, little did I really understand or know, our parents have a lot of choice right now, even before vouchers. All those yellows are some form of charter school close to us. Okay? This isn't even private school yet. So, you go to the bottom of those. The last 2 years, so we've lost 1,084 and then 1,134 to other choices. Now this number it used to be down around 800, went to 900. And in COVID time, it jumped. I think when it jumped from the 1,023 to actually jumping from 900 to 1,000 was a big jump to the choices. So there's a lot of choice here. I'm trying to remember exactly how you phrase that. Vouchers. But, I mean, the thing is, we've got to do better. We've got to compete. We've got to be able to say, hey, we're the place to be.
So there's not many transferring out of district into Little Elm since it's open enrollment?
Not yet. I mean, you say not many. If you scroll down, the next chart tells you how many come in. We have about 160 to 180 a year transfer in. And that's been pretty steady. And that's mostly a teacher maybe that lives in Denton and their kid comes with them. Or teachers. I think a lot of the ones that show we lose to Frisco are people that live here and teach in Frisco. Because I didn't realize they haven't been open enrollment until now. We see a lot of kids on our list in Frisco, and the only way that can be true is if a teacher's working there, if they don't take the transfer. But the little bit of So it's pretty clear. All these dots up here in Denton, they all go to our school. And a lot of those might be teachers. I find it fascinating, all these kids are zoned for Frisco. They go by two Frisco elementaries to get to our school. I'm not sure why. But yet we have right next to Brent, none, and like you said, it's super close. They're in Frisco zone. Why they not asked to come to Brent, I'm not sure. I mean, it's across the street, like you said. So, what else?
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so from a different perspective and looking at how many are going to be shifting from campus to campus and looking at every campus has different needs and if they're staffed and equipped for those needs at this time. So are we taking into consideration those same needs as those students are shifting to the other campuses? In particular, not only, I know Christy's not here, but also social and emotional behavioral issues.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about needs, and that's a wide range. I mean, you're talking about some very specialty programs to still needs, but maybe not as special. Yeah, so, yes, all that's, she's very in tune with all that and very much trying to adjust, and so I have to answer that, yes.
Do you know how many kids this change is going to disrupt and move to a different school?
Yes. It's a little different each one, but for example, and for Brent,
Overall.
yes, I don't know right now, but I can go calculate it. Do I?
We're talking about a third, a half.
No, about 300 kids. Brent's losing 100, but they're gaining 100. So their teacher need stays the same.
I'm looking at it from travel.
Yes, 200 kids being disrupted.
Per math.
Yes,
I'm looking at the travel perspective,
right.
not from administrative side.
Yes, I got you. Sure. Sure. Not planning on it. Yeah, I mean, the thing, the question is, this is set. We're having these meetings to just dig out things that and then again, we've seen a couple of things. But any form of, well, let's do that one starts to create back to 500s and 400s. So yeah, this is, we've done this 1,000 different ways. And this was the set of numbers that really hit close to perfect. It was kind of a sunshine moment. Well, let me rephrase. Don't say that again. 2 schools were passed in the bond. We built Lakewood Village and it'll be. That next one, quite frankly, right now our numbers don't justify building it yet. So I'm not sure when the next one will be built. I can't answer that. I don't know how the decision was made to do this one over the other.
I'm sorry, when you said you don't know how the decision was made to do this one over the other, what were you talking about, where it was built?
2 schools were approved in the last bond. One at Lakewood Village and one at, I never say it right, Valencia on the Lake. If you drive to Valencia on the Lake right now, you'll see a big sign that says future site of Little Elm Elementary. It was passed in a bond. That's when our demography report showed that we were going to be 12,000 kids in the next 2-3 years. That's just not the case right now. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for us to start building that. Now, again, we've got to wait and see what all this current building does, home prices, inflation, all that stuff. We may in a few years have to say, does it make much sense to build this for our numbers, but it might make sense to build it for our location. In the next 5 years, there's no telling. And again, we don't want to rezone every year, but I'd say we sit in this for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Let's see what happens in the growth and that kind of thing. But we are going to have to make some adjustments once we figure out really what trend we're in. Are we in a growth or a decreasing trend or not?
We're in a decrease. I work with D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in America and in this area. We did 6,000 homes 2 years ago, 4,000 homes this year, and that's across the whole DFW Metroplex, and we're projecting like 2,800 for this area.
Would you say we're in an increase or decrease?
Decrease.
How can you say we're building so many homes and then say decrease?
No, I'm sorry. We've gone down almost 2,000 homes.
Oh, what you're building.
Yeah, and projecting next year, we're down again about 2,000 homes.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the trend shows that community populations, school populations, and again, it's not just us, are decreasing.
Plus, if vouchers pass, that's going to hit this as well.
I honestly don't think vouchers will hurt us much. You still can't go to the private school with the amount of money we're trying to give, but we'll see. We'll see.
Hey, Mike, let me try and answer this question too, just for the community so they can understand. So about 4 years ago, we got our democracy report, and you have to think about 4 years back, a few years back, 2020, COVID, and then you start moving 2021, 22, 23, 24. At the time, we had basically zero interest rates on mortgages. We had people really moving from different states, California, New York, coming from different states into Texas, into Little Elm, into different locations. The home prices were pretty stable, $300,000 or above, which made a very attractive location for Little Elm in and of itself. So when we receive our democracy reports, we continue to see a trend in which we were, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 as kids were coming to the community. Well, 2020 hit, and then what we start to see is inflation, and more importantly, we start to see mortgage rates change. We start to see the loss of jobs as we start getting into 22, 23, 24, and people start to stay put a lot more. So 2024 hit now, and so most people now have to go back into the office as required by many employers. The mortgage rates are much higher, about 6%. People now not move from their homes, they're not moving from locations because they have good interest rates. Most people here probably will see 3, 4, 5% interest rates versus 6 to 7% interest rates. So what we start to see in 23 and 24 is all of a sudden the democracy reports didn't reflect the reality of what we're starting to see.
Right, but the trend we're seeing with development is where's the land to develop in Little Elm? It's on north of 380.
Well, and that's another thing is we're getting to a build out rate of completion.
Yes.
The initial build out when I was on the planning and zoning was about 76,000. That was Little Elm proper. That was not Little Elm ISD. So one thing you have to look at, Little Elm ISD is a little bit larger. We calculate for 4 or 5 cities. So we incorporate a larger area. So we go past the 76,000. But here's the thing. When house prices continue to rise, less people move into the neighborhood because the price of houses are more expensive, right? And if you notice, when you go around Little Elm, you're seeing prices in Little Elm, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, and $800,000. So what happens is when you have those price levels of those homes, you don't get as many people moving in and out. They seem to stay a lot longer because the housing prices are much, much more expensive. Right? So you're not swapping homes. Where if you purchase a home at $120,000, $130,000, your home's worth $200,000, you may move into the equity out of the house. Whereas somebody who's $600,000 or $700,000 may not be as apt to move different locations. So there are a bunch of different factors that we consider when we're looking at these things and why things are happening. But Mike is doing a good job of saying, hey, this is what we're now seeing in the economy. And I anticipate, as these mortgage rates continue to stay and inflation's, people tend to just not move as much and you don't have a lot of transition.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the impact on busing if you're allowed to do this transfer process? My kid's a second year at Oak Point Elementary, and he's one of 8 kids at his bus stop that got transferred to the new school. So the other 7 are still going to Oak Point Elementary. If he's allowed to continue at Oak Point Elementary, can he ride the same bus as them, or do I need to drive him?
No, he would be able to ride the same bus.
So if you're getting a transfer, you're also getting a bus.
Yes. I wanted to piggyback off him just a little bit. Yes, it is clear. We're pretty close to landlocked. Okay, these few neighborhoods that are being built, I think are about it. And in the last 15 years, and I'll tell you, you can tell stories if you were here 15 years ago, there was tons of open land. Okay, so that kind of growth is a little different animal. For us to not be in a decrease, because we were going to cap out at 12, that was the figure under the old set of circumstances. Okay, Lovejoy ISD probably 10 years ago, that's before COVID and all that. They experienced, and it's the first I saw of this type of situation. I don't know if you're familiar with Lovejoy. They're landlocked between McKinney and Allen. Back then, even the cheapest home was probably $600,000. So what was happening was families were there, kids were going to school, winning state championship in volleyball, but pretty soon, all those kids weren't in elementary anymore. And nobody was moving out of those homes that were landlocked. So what happened in Lovejoy? They closed in elementary. And that's when we all kind of started seeing, if people stay in homes and other people don't come in and have kids, this is what happens. So even being landlocked in Little Elm, obviously no more builders can come, no more growth can come that way, but how can growth come? If somehow, like we got to put kids in the houses that are here somehow, is what that would have to be. And I don't know what creates that, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know when that might be if that's the case. But other than that, yes, we're probably on a downward trend with our enrollments.
So if we're on a downward trend on that, and we're backing out where we build houses, why are we only creating, only sending 350 people late?
Well, we hope it's not going to be that. We hope it's going to be 450%.
Well, and if we look at areas of the district that still have room to build, it's in this area. In particular, here there's still ranch areas where people have acreage, and there's current movements to keep it that way, but there's also a lot of residents wishing to decrease that requirement in order to build. If and when that happens, this is going to fill up with a lot of subdivisions.
So we're talking 5 years.
No, I think you'll be closing a school before that happens. There's just no way.
And yeah, it's all the time. It'll be a while off.
Well, again, right behind that school, they're pretty close to building something there. Are they not? Is it not you?
No, it's Taylor Morrison that's over there in KB Homes, but they're a larger class. They're not six.
That bottom chunk of rent over here, they built all these new houses that are probably gonna be moving the bottom.
Again, everything you're talking about, there are spot little places, but we just don't know if people are going to move in them that have kids or not. So we're trying to hang on with
This price point is lower than say some of these or something.
It might, to the gentleman's point we had right there, one of the things we did know about the Oak Point. Oak Point does have a lot of land in that area. We have a lot of land back if you go into Oak Point. However, Oak Point's city council was not very open to the idea of more homes coming to that. And so what they've done is they've zoned lots according to the way they want to see their community, which is the way they've determined that they want to act. Even though it's a lot of land, and probably more homes on compressed land, the city has to be willing to do that. Now, if the city changes a little bit and they decide they want to add more homes there, then we can potentially see more growth in that area.
Are you talking down Shady Prairie Road?
Just Oak Point itself.
Yeah, so that arm of Oak Point, the problem is down there, all that land, there's no infrastructure, there's no sewage,
Yes,
there's no water.
that's correct. Well, let me say this. There was no land infrastructure. Little Elm now, up under the bridge, now they have capabilities to put infrastructure. It's just determined if they want to do that infrastructure now. So in other words, the connectors that originally were not only on the east side of the city are now there. So the sewage, gas lines, water lines are now available. As far as how they extend, that's going to be determined by what point they want to extend the lines out and then open that infrastructure up.
Does this include Milltown as well?
Yes. Yep. All right.
Hey, you mentioned that transfers, we would still provide transportation. That we can't just offer that straight out.
Okay, if I said that, I said it wrong. Let me go back. if we're sending 7 kids within our district to Oak Point and another one gets to not go to Lakeview anymore, or Lakewood anymore and go, they're gonna get on that bus with those 7 kids. So the word of transfer may not be the right word. I think is that you? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, we're not gonna say because you're a transfer from Lakewood Village to Oak Point, you're on a different bus now. You're telling me that your kid and 7 others have all been going to Oak Point. In that situation, if there's a bus stop and taking 7 kids to Oak Point, your kid can get on. That's what we were trying to say. But it's not an open statement that transfers are gonna get transportation.
We can't, yeah, we can't do that.
So if you heard me say that, I apologize. I said that wrong. Let's do this. I think we're close to wrapping up. If you want to stay and ask more specific questions, streets, whatever, that's fine. I do want to do this. Corey Worth, will you please come forward? This is the principal of Lakewood Village. Okay? So if you happen to be here, going to be zoned to Lakewood Village, you can stop and visit with who's going to be the principal there. Corey, will you say hi to the group?
Hey, everybody, how are you guys?
If you wanted to, again, if this is where you're supposed to go, want to ask her questions, she's here. But I'm going to say we're done. Again, if you want to come, just talk more specifically, come on and we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.